Good afternoon, Speaker Pelosi. Monica Walters, Bowie Children's Services.
Good afternoon. Eddie On with Brightline Defense.
Jenny Leung with the Chinese Culture Center and Foundation of San Francisco.
Callie Wong, API Council.
Dean Ito Taylor, API Legal Outreach.
Patsy Tito, Samoan Community Development Center.
Jessica Ho, Northeast Medical Services.
Carrie Lee, the YMCA San Francisco. I want to thank you also for the earmark, the $2.9 million for Crane Cove.
Jerry Young, Kaimi Star.
Hi, Linda Louie from Chinatown Media and Arts Collaborative.
Justin Hoover, I'm the Executive Director of the Chinese Historical Society of America.
Ashley Cheng with Charity Cultural Services Center, and my predecessor, Harrison Lim, says hi.
Good afternoon, Lamar Haystack, President of Asian Inc. Thank you for what you do for our children.
I'm Stuart Fong with Unlock and SFHP Free.
Hi, good afternoon. Andy Chu, Chinatown YMCA.
Hello, Madam Speaker. Michael Lee, Donaldina Cameron House.
Hi, Philip Wong with APAC, Asian Pacific American Community Center.
Ann Kwong from Chinatown Community Children's Center.
Good afternoon, Emily Murase, Executive Director of the Japantown Task Force.
Hi, Rosalind Tona, Executive Director, National Japanese American Historical Society in Japantown and the Presidio, the Military Intelligence Service, Historic Learning Center.
Malcolm Young.
Talofa, I'm Natalie Asun, Director of Community Engagement and Government Affairs for RAMS, a nonprofit mental health organization. Good afternoon, Madam. Rob Chua with API Council.
Hi, Jade Keyson, API Council.
Tell us who you are.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Tino Felice, Director of Programs here at the Samoan Community Development Center. Thank you.
It's difficult to introduce Speaker Nancy Pelosi because I think we know how much she's accomplished. We could go on for days introducing her. I'll try to be brief. I think we all know her. We know her commitment to the issues of the API community, and that speaks volumes in and of itself. You know, from and I need to. I'm sorry, the Emerita thing. I don't get that. She will always be the Speaker of the House of Representatives to us. Always. So, you know, it's not only because of all that she accomplished as the Speaker of the House, the most accomplishments of anybody in Congress ever, including, you know, the Affordable Care Act, to helping us with federal support during COVID, to working on our infrastructure, rebuilding America more recently, and of course, you know, things that are dear to our services like the Violence Against Women Act, things that the legislation that really helps us deep in the community. It's unmatched. It will be unmatched, and so she will always be, no matter what, the Speaker of the House of Representatives. But more importantly, you know, some of us are a little bit older. I know that some of us have been called the old guard or whatever, but there was a time when, you know, the API community did not have as much economic and political influence as we do today. And from the very first days that Nancy was elected to Congress, she reached out to the API community because she knew how vital our issues were to San Francisco. And we really still appreciate that because there are no other federal policymakers that have that kind of commitment to our community anywhere. And I can speak from, old age. So, and let me, one final thing is I was watching the Warriors game yesterday, right? Yeah. So, and I was contemplating, I don't think we're ever going to see this again. Steph Curry, the Warriors, and I was thinking, we should take a minute to step back and appreciate what we're seeing, what we're experiencing, and we should definitely appreciate the leadership of Speaker Nancy Pelosi all these years. That's right. So I don't know if you've ever been compared to Steph Curry before, but I think it's a fair comparison. So, one of the only advantages, I guess, of Speaker Pelosi stepping back from her leadership is that she's able to spend more time with us. She's able to spend more time in the district, and we really appreciate her commitment to come out to Sunnydale, to come out to the Samoan Community Development Center, to help the API Council kind of provide services. So welcome, on behalf of the API Council, welcome to our community.
Thank you very much, Dean. One thing I do, many things I do love about Steph is that he cares about children. He and his wife have been leaders in feeding the children. Eat, play, learn have been one of their themes, and that is something that we all have in common with Steph, even if we can't have the whole repertoire of moves that he has in addition to the three shot. Anyway, it's an honor to be here. Thank you for your welcome, Callie. Actually, last year for this wonderful month that we're observing, we were together on the end of the month. This time we're at the beginning of the month, the first day, so we are going to really celebrate every day of the month. And then we were just in Chinatown at China Live, so that was, many of us were together then oh, I'm sorry. I was using my mother of five voice. I don't know if you could have heard me there. But anyway, it's great to be here and to be here with Patsy and to see what is happening in the Samoan community in our city. You said some nice things about me, but I take every compliment on behalf of who I represent, the intellectual, cultural, political, in every way, civic-minded resource that you all are. When we came in, there was a sign that was welcoming to us with some of the staff here, and it said, leadership begins through service. The path to leadership. The path to leadership is through service. And that is, service can only spring. Annie, when did I first meet you? Like in the 60s or so, 70s, when you first began self-help for the it's been a long time. Anyway, your service, the service of so many of you and the organizations that you represent is a path to leadership for you, but also for those of us who learn from you. So thank you for what you do in the community. Just to watch the students dance, there's the beauty, the grace of it all, the tranquility of it all, culturally what that means to lift people up and to see the smiles on their beautiful faces as they did it. It's the cultural aspects of our lives are so important, and that's one of the reasons I was so excited to see the teaching of the Samoan language here, because if we don't treasure it, it will disappear. These people will go to visit Samoa speaking a different language. And thank you, because that is so enriching, not to just them, but to our whole community. So here we are in this month. So much going on. The Samoan Community Development Center, Patsy's been telling me about their plans. Thank you for your leadership, for the cultural and inclusiveness of it all by serving Samoan and Pacific Islanders, not just in San Francisco, but in the Bay Area, and the fact that this is now the district in Sunnyvale and Viz Valley and the rest. So it's great to be here. I want to hear your questions, but I just want to talk about a few things. When we celebrate this APA Heritage Month, we celebrate the many contributions generations of Asian Pacific Americans have given to our country. As you know better than anyone, this is a very diverse community, a very diverse community. We were just in, Emily, we were just in Japantown celebrating what we're going to be doing next there with the plaza and the rest. We were in China Live as we all came together and recognized the contribution of the different diversity of the community to America. And in the House, we have the largest now class of AAPI members in history to make sure that your voices are heard, not just through your representative, but through the representatives who really feel ownership of representing all AAPI in our country. And we take pride in legislation that President Biden, last year, he made the first steps to create a national museum dedicated to Asian Pacific American history and culture. How important that is to our nation. I was pleased to put Jay Hsu, our director of the Asian Art Museum, to that. So we had a connection here, but also a connection to the beautiful art of Asia and Asian Americans. We tried to keep bringing resources to the community, and hopefully, you can't even imagine what we're up to in Congress right now. I mean, we're family to each other. They just put forth that when we make requests for our community, none of it can deal with health, education, the arts. How can you explain that? How can you explain that? Well, you can explain it because largely it has to do with cities, which are largely blue, or communities like California, which is a blue state. And so when we're trying to address the diversity issue, inclusiveness issue, we're talking about cities and communities. But they've just said there can be no more of that. Fortunately, the Senate hasn't been doing that, so we're channeling some of our requests to Senator Feinstein and Senator Padilla. But just to tell you, I mean, like this last couple of years, we did $2.5 million for China Community Development Center, $2.5 million for Chinatown Media and Arts Collaborative, $3 million for Chinatown Peace Plaza, and more things, and more. Let's see what else we have here, just to let you know, because you make these appeals. In the next one, with $2 million for Southeast Asian Development Center, and then over $1 million for Asian Week Foundation to bring improvements to the community farm. When I was announced my candidacy, I was at a labor union hall, a longshoreman hall. It was great. The first event that I had after my announcement was in Chinatown. The very first, that was about 36 years ago now. It was February of 1987. So my connection has been a strong one over the years, politically too, if I may be allowed a political moment. But in any event, with this new president, he is so about justice. Everything that we've done, whether it was in this past 2 years, and I thank you, Dean, for your kind words. You remind me when you talked about the Affordable Care Act. Now, you will appreciate this, I think. So we have these meetings where they say, what one thing would you bring from your district to all these members? And everybody's saying all the things you would expect, that you would expect in a bill. So it wasn't a lot of, shall we say, entrepreneurial things. It was more, we want justice, we want fairness, we want primary care, all that. And when it came to my turn so much of what you all care about was already mentioned. And I said, well, the one thing from my district is that we want to see that Chinese medicine be compensated in the bill. They made so much fun of me. They made so much fun of me. They were like, oh, this big deal coming from San Francisco. All she could talk about was Chinese medicine. I said, well, the diversity is a very big issue for us, and certainly I support all the other things. Now, this was not the Affordable Care. This is when Hillary Clinton was doing her bill in the early 90s. So in any event, I've learned a lot from you about many things, including some of the opposition we will meet when we come forward with our ideas. But that's just opportunity for us, as you know. The president, again, with the rescue package, with the infrastructure package, with the CHIPS and Science bill, with all those things, with the IRA, the Saving the Planet, everything that he has done has had to have a justice piece. Justice in how we build our infrastructure, justice in how we give out contracts, justice in how we educate people to take these jobs, to take the lead in science and chips. And we had to fight. He was a leader, but in the Senate, we had to fight terrible language that was anti-Asian. You would think, what is it that I don't understand about this? Judy Chu, who's the chair of our caucus, and just a champion on so many issues, she just made it clear. So I could say to the Senate, you have that language in, you ain't got no bill. That's just the way it is. There is no bill. I had to say to the president, I had to say to the business community, you want this CHIPS and Science bill? You go tell them to take that language out, because we had worked very hard over time to change the whole approach to the bill, which had more of that language. And then at the end, they were insisting on it, but we did get the language out, and President was very important and all that. But so were all of you, because weighing in the business community, in the cultural community, in the political community, in every way, know your power about all of this. Of course, we now have, Patsy and I were talking about how the community, especially the small community, was hard hit by COVID, and thank you for your leadership in getting food and services out to people during that time. Who would have ever thought, wait a minute, in another month or so we're going to have something that's going to last a couple of years, 1 million people will die? So the sense of community that rescues is so important. Not only rescues, but anticipates what could happen, and thank you. Let us thank Patsy for what was done here in this community. And that is an applause line. So, guns. Monterey Park, Half Moon Bay. Even before that, we have to make sure that whatever it is that is existing in the minds and the whatever of people out there, that it's okay to use a gun. Well, maybe you'll have some questions about that, and we can go to that. But that is such an important issue, and it's such an important issue to this president. You know, when we passed the original gun bill, well, the Brady bill, which had in it the ban on assault weapons, I was a new man. That was in the 94, so I'd already been there a few years. Our leader in that fight in the House was Chuck Schumer. Our leader in the country was Dianne Feinstein, still is on guns. This last assault in Texas, she is advancing, continues to advance legislation in that regard. It saved lives. It was renewed. It saved more lives. And then it was, in a majority of Republican situation, President and House able to lapse. But we just have to get that back. And the community has to make it a priority, as I know you have. But unfortunately, it had to hit home so closely. And but understand that our members don't let a day go by without addressing it, and Judy Chu, a champion on all of this. And by the way, she's a champion she has the bill to overturn the Supreme Court on Roe v. Wade, so she has quite an expanse of leadership in the Congress. We're proud of her. So again, our city is very blessed with the beauty of the cultural contributions and all. For so many years now, every time I come home, Dean, I drive through the neighborhoods and I think, I feel sorry for my colleagues. How boring it must be for them just to have ordinary, nothing special going on. And no matter what honor members might bestow on me, speaker, leader, whip, whatever, nothing is more of an honor to walk on the floor of the House and say, I'm here to speak for the people of San Francisco. And I think all members should feel that way about their districts, but they don't all represent San Francisco. And it is, there are 435 members, only one from your district, I say to the members. We all think we represent the best district in the country. I'm absolutely certain of it. So as we kick off AAPI Heritage Month, we want to renew our vow to ensure that all AAPI families, and we as a family, do so with safety. We know it's with dignity and with pride. That's always been there, but with safety. And that's why I want to hear more up to date. May 31st last year, May 1st this year. Is today May 1st or is it? I thought it was. I started so early this morning with DC because it's 3 hours earlier that I'm almost to the next day. But I'm here to listen and to learn and to thank all of you for what you do. It is remarkable for our country. The beauty, I always say to my members in our district, is in the mix. The beauty, the diversity, the entrepreneurial spirit, the freshness of thinking. It doesn't mean that one of us is better than the next. It means diversity at the table produces a much better result. And that's what our country is about. So with your commitment, so many of your families, some newcomers, many generations, coming to America. I come from an Italian-American family, but seeing coming the courage it took for your families to come here with a hope for a brighter future, that optimism, that hope, that courage, that determination, they're American traits. So our communities make America more American. Thank you for your patriotism. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So we have a few questions from the API Council, and I'd like to call on Monica Walters, CEO of Hawaiian Children's Services. Got that question ready?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you again, Madam Speaker, for your wonderful leadership and ongoing commitment to the causes that we all believe in, the social justice, and not just equality, but equity for all. My question has to do with, no surprise, early education. The Early Education Head Start community applauds President Biden's latest executive order supporting the child care access and quality measures. In San Francisco, we especially need to see family fees eliminated, as it is a significant challenge for our most in-need families, as well as increases in our Head Start funding. Will this order be upheld? Are there barriers that you see in moving it forward to implementation? And what can we as a community do to make sure that it, in fact, is, we see the effects of his executive order?
Thank you for your question. It's very central to everything that the president wants to do. I had the privilege of being at the White House when he announced the executive order, because that was something that was part of our Build Back Better initiative in the last Congress that didn't make it into the final version. But it's absolutely essential. And just so you know, what the president did the other day was what we couldn't do legislative, but he did by executive order. Now we have to get the money for it. But just so you know, in the bill, in the Science, Chips and Science Act. See, with Chips and Science, the CHIPS bill was very important for us to do. We couldn't manufacture. We didn't have enough chips. You want to build a car, 1,000 chips, an electric car, over 2,000 chips. Anyway, it was important to our manufacturing and in so many other ways. Everything we have has chips in it. So, okay. So people said, just do the chips. Why are you holding up the CHIPS Act for the science part? I said, the science is the future. The chips are the here and now. That's important. We will have that. And the business community wants that. But what we want is education, research, and we want diversity in all of that. And we want women and communities of the diverse communities to be represented in how we do all of that. And that's what the CHIPS and science, the science was the House part of the bill. The CHIPS part's where they had their bad language coming from the Senate. But we got rid of it. And anyway, in that bill, one of the things the president did was to insist upon child care facilities in the businesses that were getting this money for CHIPS and the rest, and other aspects of it, research and all the rest. And so that exists. But that's not enough. I mean, that's just discreetly what that is. So what the president did the other day is to make the big statement. If we're going to have a truly successful workforce, an economy, we have to have a diversity in our workforce, diversity in every way, gender, education, background, ethnicity, every possible way. And this is the fight that we're having. Now, let me just say, you know I love Wu Yi. I just love it. I use it as an example when I'm talking about I wish you could all see Wu Yi, I say to my members. So thank you for the model that you are. But here's, we absolutely must insist on the child care piece and the child tax credit and all these things, and home health care workers that enable people to go to work because a sibling, a parent, or whatever, in addition to a child. We have to have family and medical leave. You know, these are all these things which say people can be in the workforce. However, in the bill that the other day, you know, we're having the, shall we say, debate about the debt ceiling. This may be more than you ever want to know on the subject, but this is what's current for us. We're having a debate on the debt ceiling. At the same time, the president's issuing this executive order. They're putting in their bill, if you want to lift the debt ceiling, we have to cut back on all of these things. Even food. Food. Over 1 million seniors will be kicked off of Meals on Wheels. Over 1 million women, infant, and children, more than 1 million people will be kicked off of that. And in order to achieve any of the benefits, they have a work requirement. Now, how can you have a work requirement when you don't have the health care and the food and everything else that you need? It's absolute cruelty. It's not a new fight for us, but it's absolute cruelty at this time when we've come out of COVID and all the rest and see how home health care, food, all of that is so important. So what we're trying to do with all of it, whether we're talking about Head Start, whether we're talking about Medicaid, all of these things is to fight that. Now, just to enlarge the issue for a moment, when we talk about lifting the debt ceiling, we have to lift the debt ceiling. It's bills that we've already incurred. When what's-his-name was president before President Biden, I lifted it 3 times. We lifted it 3 times. We never said to him, unless you take back the tax cuts for the rich, we're not going to do it. I would have liked to have done that, but that's not connected to the debt. The debt ceiling is what it is. It must be lifted. The Constitution says the full faith and credit of the United States of America is not to be questioned. Yet they are questioning it and tying one of the most cruel list of cuts to say, unless you do this, you can't do that. Now, should we have to debate those issues? Yeah, let's debate them. Separately, lift the debt ceiling, and now let's have a debate on how we go forward, but not whether we're going to pay our past bills, many of which were incurred by what's his name? $2 trillion tax cuts for the richest people. 87% of the tax cut went to the top 1% of the richest people in our country. And they're saying, in order to lift the debt ceiling, we have to take food out of the mouths of babies, of seniors, all of these things. So that's the difference between Democrats and Republicans at this time. I would hope that that could change, and the electoral process will have them see. They're so religious, you know. Let's say you pray at church on Sunday and you pray on people the rest of the week. Where in the gospel? And speaking of God's creation, which we believe this planet is, they're reversing the money to protect the planet as well. And that's a lot of justice money. It's a lot of jobs money and the rest. So we have a fight, Monica. We have to fight. And elections have ramifications. But Lincoln said, public sentiment is everything. With it, you can accomplish almost anything. Without it, practically nothing. But for public sentiment to weigh in and prevail, people have to know. So that's what we have to do. We have to say to them, these are the facts. This is not an opinion. These are facts. This is what they are cutting. So, and let's give you one more. So when we had this fight when Obama was president, we had the fight on lifting the debt ceiling, and they wanted to do this and that, blah, blah. They said, let's just see if we can't find $200 billion in the budget side of the debate, not on the debt ceiling, but let's see if we can't find $200 billion. So I said to them, well, the first place we can go is there's $38 billion in tax incentives for the 5 or 6 biggest oil companies to drill. Dean, they made $1 trillion the year before. They do not need a tax incentive to drill. And it's still there. And so I said to them, let's get rid of that. That's $38 billion. They said, why would we do that when we can just cut? This is a Republican leadership in the White House with the president sitting there. Why would we do that when we can just cut $38 billion out of Pell Grants? So, how do you don't want to be a fear monger, but how do you tell the public? They don't care about you. They're only there to line the pockets of the richest people in America, and that is their total agenda. And it's just really a sad thing. It didn't used to be this way, but it was tough before. It wasn't easy. But this is not even the same debate. And I know we have more questions, but I just want to tell you what was going on there right now.
Thanks, Annie. Well, first and foremost, thank you for advocating for Chinese medicine. We have a really robust acupuncture program now that Medi-Cal does reimburse for acupuncture, so thank you for that.
I worked with Jerry Brown on that 40 years ago, before I was even in Congress, when I was chair of the California Democratic Party. I learned a lot from the community. That's what I brought to that table.
It's amazing. So, as you're aware, we've talked about this, many key health programs are facing a fiscal cliff, including funding for federally qualified health centers across the nation, including NEMS. However, we also know that the Republican-controlled House is proposing spending cuts across the board, and that costs for health care have only increased over the years due to inflation and rising wages and everything else that comes with providing health care. We do so much more since COVID, so now we just have expanded, and we don't have any new resources. Although you did provide a lot of resources to ARPA, so thank you for that as well. So what can be done? What is your advice for us this year to push and for us to advocate? What would you recommend that we do to help you in your fight for more funding?
Well, I thank you, Jessica. I think this is one area where we can find broad political support across the country, bipartisan support. On Saturday night, I had the honor of receiving an award from API Wellness Now, San Francisco Community Health Centers. And we talked about this. And what I told them there is if we had a new country, we had a brand new country and we were starting, I would carpet the country with very qualified community health centers or just community health centers. Culturally appropriate, linguistically accessible for people, nearby, really having the confidence of the people that they serve, treating them with great respect. And then we'd have some hospitals too. But we would have mostly community health centers. This is so important. That's why President Biden has in his budget doubling the funding for community health centers. You can't even understand why the Republicans have flat funding or cuts for that. But it has been a bipartisan issue for us in the Congress. And I just think by, again, community-based advocacy across the country, this is a fight we can win. So as you are interacting with friends across the country, other people who are involved in the organizations, we just can't take no for an answer. Because this is it. I mean, this is in the neighborhood, in the language, in the culture, in the care that people need, and it will make a tremendous difference. I wish I could say child care was a bipartisan, you would think, but you hear them talk about it, but they don't want to put any money there. But this is a place that I do see hope, and the president has doubled it. So there's a goal as well as a path. So thank you for your leadership in that regard. Thank you.
The next
others?
question is from Patsy.
Oh, Patsy.
I have a lot of questions, but around our Samoan Pacific Islander. But you had mentioned earlier around gun violence. The question that we have is there any legislation that can be offered if the court allows gun possession by those who have been convicted of domestic violence?
Well, in the bill that we passed, in other words, we haven't passed what we need all to pass in terms of preventing gun violence, and Senator Feinstein, again, has been the champion on all of this. The bill we passed, the comprehensive bill, the community safety bill last year, we did address this issue. We did not get everything we wanted. For some reason, the gun industry wanted to protect people who were stalking their wife or their former wife or whatever it is. But this is a very important point, and we did make some progress. But, of course, more needs to be made. I don't think it's going to happen until we win this next election. I mean, we can always be advocating, preparing the way, spreading the word of the opportunity. But in that next election, if we win, if I may be allowed a political moment, if we win the election, win the House, which we will do, win the Senate, but we need a couple more votes there, a couple more Senate, so that we can push back this filibuster. And then with just 51 votes instead of needing 60, we can pass gun ban, the gun assault weapon ban. We can have the full protection of people who are stalked by or having someone in their home or stalking them, a former husband, mate, whatever, or just somebody who's being stalked by somebody. You would think it would be the easiest thing to do. And we have some language, we need more. But thank you for emphasizing the importance of that. But that one, we just have to win the election. Community college, community health centers, yeah. Child care, we need the money, so we have to win the election for that. Next, who's next?
Annie?
Who's next? Annie.
Thank you, Dee. Actually, I think that my question, I hope Republicans need food as well, right? They need food as much as we do. So my question is on the food and nutrition. I think that we strive for everyone to have 3 full meals, But the fact is, ever since the pandemic, the food need has gone up so high. It spiked at almost every neighborhood. Chinatown, Mission, North Beach. There are a lot of us that provide meals and food pantry, like Kari at the YMCA and Patsy. And we've seen food lines that have increased twofold, threefold, up to like Kimochi just told me 600 people lined up for their meals today, last week. So we've seen the spike, but yet the funding are all being cut. So the CalFresh, the emergency $290 being cut back to $20 a month. So people immediately have to cut their food. Children go hungry, seniors go hungry, and that's why we see the food insecurity everywhere. And API Council has been working very, very hard on getting more food support out to the community. So my question to you is, how could you help us to advocate for funding back for the nutrition and the food program?
Well, as you know, for food and for Medicaid, they have this work requirement, which is a barrier. However, just to get to the point of, I have been to giving out food and food banks different places in the city. Interesting to me, like in North Beach and stuff, so many people from the Asian Pacific American community coming and picking up things and the rest. It was stunning to me. I'm talking like during COVID. Over the past several years. I don't know which one. Several years. So that is a message that the churches really have to help us with, because feed the hungry. This is the gospel of Matthew for us in the Christian faith. When I was hungry, you fed me. But the Lord also said, when I was hungry, you didn't feed me. So he made the distinction between those who did and those who didn't. So if these people are so, shall we say, religious, and let's respect them if they are, then this would be the natural course of events for them. They go onto the floor of the house, and this is how they talk. God put people on earth and said, you want to eat, you got to work. You got to till the land and grow the food, and then you can eat it. Or you got to work so that you can earn. And we're like, hey, we're talking about children. We're talking about seniors. We're talking about people who are, what are you talking about, you big jerk? I mean, that's how you feel. I mean, I'm being honest with you right now. God put people on earth that he did. I thought he said, when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was homeless, you sheltered me. When I was naked, you clothed me. When I was in prison, you visited me. I thought he talked about respect in this, not when children will go out there and till the soil, that would be a lovely thing if we lived in that kind of a place. But obviously we don't, and children need the food. Seniors need the food. Look, I told you over 1 million children, moms, infants, and children. Over 1 million seniors, Meals on Wheels. I didn't tell you 30 million veterans health care visits. 30 million health care visits for seniors. $8 billion to take away from law enforcement. So this is brutal. This is cruelty, especially when it comes down to taking food out of the mouths of babies, which they are doing. So how do we, I heard from the head of the VA yesterday. He said, the Republicans are feeling the heat. They're calling me and saying we wouldn't think of doing that, but they are. So on these matters, I think we just really, there are groups, organizations, all different kinds, whether dealing with children or seniors or community or healthcare, whatever it is, just make sure the people know so that public sentiment can wear it. Now, one of the questions about food is always about the EBT program for helping 30 million children receive nutritious foods during the summer months when they don't have food in school, because this is the only meal that many of these kids get. Since you mentioned Steph, I will say I met with him and his wife by Zoom a couple years ago when we were writing a bill, and they asked for money for this program in the summer. And I said, right this moment, I see no path. What's his name was president. The Republicans just would not do it. They would not do it. You know this issue better than I. You remember when he was putting tariffs on China and the rest of that? So they came to me and said, we need $30 billion to, well, they were paying off the farmers. They were buying their political policy. We need $30 billion for the farmers, whatever it is, fund, slush fund for Trump, but nonetheless, whatever they were calling it. So you do? I need $8 billion for EBT. After I told Stephen, his wife, that I didn't see a path because they would, the only way you can get something from them is they want something. Not because it's a value, not because it's the right thing to do, but if they want something, then you got to get something. So anyway, we were able to get the $8 billion that we needed. So they could, I didn't give them the whole 30, but they could get some of the money they needed for the farmers' funds. Of course, they went into farm country and said, we were holding up the farm money, blah, blah, blah. I said, I'm not holding up. Just give me $8 billion for the children, and then you can go do whatever you do. But that is what it took to get the money then. We had to find something that they wanted to trade it off. You would think it'd be the top of the list. We're a family. We're going to feed our children. We're going to feed our families. Not really. Not really. So the path, again, public sentiment, whether it's community health centers, food, these are things that do strike a chord with the American people. The American people are good people. They're people of goodwill. But they have to know. They have to know what this is without being fear-mongers, but they have to know. So thank you for all that you are doing, that you have done, that you will do as we go forward with this. And there are people on TV, commentators, who say, well, the president's got to negotiate. No, he doesn't have to negotiate on whether we will lift the debt ceiling. That is an absolute. 3 times with what's his name in the White House. You think I felt like making his life easy? But it's not about him. It's about the full faith and credit of the United States of America. And when they did this to Obama, just the debate on it caused the credit rating of the United States of America to go down. Our credit rating was reduced. And what that means to people's credit card bills, it means the kitchen table for America, billions of dollars. But they didn't care. They didn't care. So I didn't come here to make a political thing, but you're asking about what makes a difference in all of these things. So again, if we could just take the politics out of it, just ask them to do the right thing for the children. Now, all of you, I said it last year, I'll say it again, and I thank you for acknowledging. You know, doing this politics, it's not for the faint of heart. This is tough. When you're in the arena with this, you got to be ready to take a punch. You got to be ready to throw a punch for the children. For the children. So thank you for what you do for the children, their families, our community, our country. For your the intellectual resource you are. Thank you for your patriotism for America. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Speaker Emerita, and our members for coming out today in celebration of APA Heritage Month. It's always API Council's favorite event of the year, and this year we did not 1, but we did 2 in 3 months. So we just...
Actually, our 31st is within this year, too.
Yeah, that's true.
The month is young.
We might do another one by the mid-month or the end of the month. We just want to thank you for, working with us in creating a more equitable, inclusive, future for our kids, future for our seniors, for, the Asian Pacific Islander community. So with that, we will do our annual photo. So I think the best way to move forward is maybe we can have folks who are sitting come and stand in the back, and we can do a group photo.
Let us thank Callie and Dean for their leadership of the APA. And let us thank Patsy for her leadership and her hospitality today.
I also